14 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. It's almost impossible to get your head around a number that big. But this isn't some abstract statistic. This is the staggering number of people in Sudan who've either been forced to flee their country as refugees or are displaced inside their own homeland, all because of a brutal, devastating conflict.
So you have to ask yourself, how on earth did we get here? How did a nation with such a long, rich history just completely collapse into one of the worst humanitarian crises on the entire planet? Well, that's the question we are going to unpack right now.
We're calling this the tragic loop, and for good reason. As you're about to see, Sudan's history is this heartbreaking, repeating cycle of hope and then collapse, of popular evolution followed by a military takeover. If you can understand that pattern, you can understand what's happening today.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the current crisis, we have to start with the players on the field. This war, which really exploded on April 15, 2023, is at its core a raw power struggle between two very powerful generals.
On one side, you've got the Sudanese Armed Forces, the SAF. This is the official national army, led by General al-Burhan. And on the other side, you've got the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. They're a massive paramilitary group led by General Hemedti. Now, the most crucial thing to know about the RSF is that they grew directly out of the notorious Janjaweed militia. Remember that name. It's absolutely key to this whole story.
But look, a fight like this between two top generals doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's really the violent climax of tensions that have been simmering and building for decades. To really get it, we need to wind the clock back, way back.
So let's do it. Let's rewind to 1956. This is the year Sudan gains its independence. But from the very first day it existed as a country, it was already carrying the seeds of all the conflict that was to come. I mean, picture this. Sudan finally becomes independent, but it's already broken. You've got this deep, deep divide between the Arab and Islamic North and the African, Christian, and animist South. The government and its institutions were incredibly weak. And get this, its first civil war had already started the year before independence was even declared. The entire foundation of the country was unstable from day one. And this timeline, wow, it just lays bare that tragic loop we're talking about. Just 2 years after independence, boom, the first military coup. Then another one in '69. Later on, after Sharia law is imposed, which angered a lot of people, what happens? The military takes over again in '85. It's like civilian rule never even had a chance to breathe before it got stamped out over and over again. All of this instability basically set the stage for a 30-year dictatorship that would come to define modern Sudan. In 1989, another coup brought a man named Omar al-Bashir to power, and his name would become synonymous with brutal, relentless conflict. And that right there tells you everything. Al-Bashir's takeover wasn't just your standard military junta. He fused military power with a very hardline Islamist ideology, and that created this incredibly repressive state that just systematically crushed anyone who stood in its way. And nowhere was that brutality more obvious, more horrifying than in the western region of Darfur. In 2003, when some rebel groups rose up against the government, al-Bashir's response was, well, it was unimaginable. 300,000. That's the estimated number of people who were killed. It was a slaughter. The International Criminal Court would eventually charge al-Bashir himself with genocide and war crimes for what happened there. This was a truly horrific, defining chapter for Sudan. Okay, so this is so important to understand. To crush that rebellion in Darfur, the government armed and unleashed those militias we mentioned, the Janjaweed. They were the ones who carried out the ethnic cleansing, the genocide. Then, 10 years later, the regime gives them a new name and a formal status, the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF. Why? It's a classic dictator move. You create a powerful force that exists outside the regular army, one whose only loyalty is to you. The very group fighting the army today was born from this genocide. But then, after 30 years of this oppression, something incredible happened. That tragic loop we've been talking about, it seemed like it was finally about to break. Not because of the military, but because of the people themselves. It all started with the rising price of bread, if you can believe it, but it grew into this massive, beautiful, peaceful uprising that just swept across the entire country. What began as a protest about the economy blossomed into a nationwide call for freedom, for justice, and for an end to al-Bashir's rule. And they did it. They actually succeeded. After months of tireless, courageous protests, the military had no choice but to remove Omar al-Bashir. For a moment, it really felt like a new, democratic Sudan wasn't just possible, it was right there, within reach. There was this incredible, electric feeling of hope.
And then, just 2 months later, that hope was brutally crushed. Security forces, led by the very same RSF we've been talking about, stormed a peaceful protest camp in the capital. They killed and injured hundreds of people. It was an unbelievable, horrific betrayal.
And this is where that tragic loop slams shut. This brings us right back to the two generals we started with. The revolution stream of a civilian-led country was about to be completely dismantled by the very men who had claimed they were protecting it.
You see, after the revolution, a fragile power-sharing government was set up between civilian leaders and the military. It was a shot at real democracy. But in October 2021, General al-Burhan from the army and his number 2, General Hemeti from the RSF, staged another coup. Together, they kicked out the civilians, seized total control, and killed the democratic transition dead.
But here's the thing about an alliance between two powerful men, each with his own army, it's just not built to last. They couldn't agree on who should have more power, or, crucially, how to merge the massive RSF into the regular army. They turned on each other, and that feud led directly to the all-out war that started in April 2023.
And the consequences? They've been an absolute catastrophe. Reports from the UN in late 2025 paint a horrifying picture. When the RSF took the city of El Fasher, it's feared tens of thousands were killed in ethnic attacks. In just one 3-day attack on the Zamzam camp for displaced people, over 1,000 civilians were just executed.
Which brings us right back to that central question. If we ever want to understand if this cycle can be broken, we have to look squarely at the deep-rooted problems that just keep feeding it, again and again.
When you really boil it all down, it comes back to these 4 things. 1, politics in Sudan has always been dominated by men with guns, not by civilians. 2, the country's deep ethnic and regional divides have never been healed. 3, the economy is so fragile it creates constant unrest. And finally, the legacy of empowering militias like the RSF has created monsters that the state can't control anymore.
And so we're left with this. From independence all the way to today, Sudan's story has been one of immense suffering and these brief, fleeting moments of hope. After almost 70 years of being trapped in this tragic loop, the real question isn't just about how this war ends. It's about what it will finally take for the people of Sudan to break that cycle for good and write a new, peaceful future for themselves.